My story started when my daughter, we were on holiday, she became very ill. She said, "Mum, I'm bleeding and..."
When you go to the supermarket these days, every other product promises to be good for your gut. The gut health business is clearly booming, as are conversations about why you should be incorporating things like Kefir, Kimchi, and Kombucha into your diet because it's good for your gut microbiome. I don't know why all those foods start with a K, and I'm not quite sure what a gut microbiome is, but I have someone with me today who is going to break all of this down into digestible chunks. I'm really sorry, I couldn't resist that pun. Nishta Patel is a clinical nutritionist and she specializes in gut health. She's known as the gut expert. Nishta, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, am I right in thinking that you fell into this world of gut health by accident?
Well, my story started when my daughter, she was aged 14 at the time. We were on holiday and she became very ill while we were on holiday. We were in Alaska and she said, "Mum, I'm bleeding and I don't feel well." And so obviously you panic. We came back to England and to go to the doctors. She's going to the toilet 15 times a day, blood.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what happened? How does this happen? She was super healthy.
So it was all of a sudden that it happened?
All of a sudden, out of the blue. They did tests and they said, "Oh, it's proctitis." And I was like, "What's proctitis?" And it's when you've got lower inflammation in the lower part of the colon rectum. I was like, "How does this happen?" And they just said, "Oh, well, it happens. It's happening more and more." And I'm like, "But why? Why? How?" Had no answers. Well, in the beginning, she wasn't going as many times a day. It was like maybe 5 to 7, and I was told, "Well, bring her back to the hospital if it gets more." So, you had to wait for it to get worse.
Wow, to get worse than that.
Yeah. And it's quite scary as well because you don't know what's going on. And anyway, it then led to inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's or colitis. There's two factors to inflammatory bowel disease. Hers was diagnosed as colitis, then possibly Crohn's. Then they weren't sure because things were getting worse. They had her on every kind of medication you can imagine. There was chemotherapy drugs, there were steroids. 14-year-old child, steroids make your face get big, beautiful clear skin. Now acne, slim, even slimmer. Just by the time she was 16, she was just deteriorating. She was on drug after drug.
So this went on for then 2 years?
2 years. I kept saying, does diet have anything to do with it? Is there anything I can do to change this? Nope. Let her eat what she wants. And she was a careful eater anyway. And it's just one of those things, you're going to have to live with it. It's a chronic condition and she's going to have it for the rest of her life. And I couldn't accept that. So I started researching. I researched and, nothing was coming up. And I'm not overly religious, but I am very spiritual. And I just went, if there is a God up there, give me an answer. And, I kept Googling. And then this book came up. I bought the book and I followed everything in the book. It was a lady who had Crohn's herself.
Right.
And she said, you can absolutely heal from this. We're not allowed to say heal. We have to say put into remission because, and I hate that word remission because you always associate it with something terminal like cancer or whatever. But, in the medical field, you have to say remission. Right. You can't say cure, you can't say heal, but you do, because that condition is always going to be there and you are going to have peaks and troughs where you can be well and you can be unwell when it flares up. So I researched, I did everything in the book. Very naively, I didn't tell the doctors what I was doing. I don't advocate this to anybody, but for me that just felt right, because every time there was a side effect, there was a drug. And there was like a cocktail of drugs. And the more research I was doing, there's no real research to show you what's going to happen to someone if they're taking like 8 drugs or 9 drugs at the same time. And I just couldn't watch her. She was a mess physically, mentally. Well, when we started doing this protocol, she started healing. She started getting better and better and better. Skin started clearing, gut started getting better, brain started working properly again. And when he did a colonoscopy, he said to me, "Congratulations, Mrs. Patel, the medicine's finally working." And at which point, my husband, who's a pharmacist, is kicking me, going, tell him. I was so scared to tell him, because they can take your child away as well, because you're not supposed to do that. It's wrong. But I said to him, "I haven't given any medicine." And he went, How long? How long haven't you done this?" And I said, 9 months. And he went, "If this child loses her colon, it's down to you and me. This is witchcraft. This is so wrong." And I said, "With all due respect, doctor, all I've done is change her diet and put her on some supplements. Maybe we can do some research. Maybe we can help other children." And he went, "Not in this lifetime." And he walked off. And then I went back to college. I was in my mid-40s. I had 2 elderly in-laws to look after, 2 teenage kids, household to run. But it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I went back and I studied 3 years to become a clinical nutritionist. Finished there, got a job at the London Clinic of Nutrition. I was the first practitioner there, and it grew into one of the biggest functional medicine clinics, one of the biggest in the UK, well known. And there's about 20 people there now, but at the time it was just Oliver and I. Then we flew to America regularly to get our qualifications in functional medicine. So I helped lots and lots of people at the London Clinic, lots of clients at the London Clinic. And and she's fine now, and she's not on any medication, and she hasn't been for many years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm so happy that she's okay now. And the fact that as a mom, just your love for her put you on this journey, trying to help her, and your gut instinct. And, we're going to come to that a little bit later on as well. But that's amazing. And retraining, and like you said, I know it's not easy. Well, at the moment, a lot of people are now talking about gut health. And I don't think they were a few years ago. I didn't care about it a few years ago. I know that for sure. And I don't remember seeing products around that advertise good for your gut and that kind of thing. I mean, what has happened? What has been that shift, do you think, to make people, for it to enter people's mind, okay, my gut, I need to look after my gut? Or do you think it's just another marketing thing?
No, I think clinical research is getting more and more advanced, and they're doing more and more testing, and you've got people like Zoe doing their thing where they're talking to you about it more, and there's more. They know now, like they never used to many years ago think that they knew there was a gut-brain connection. You've got a vagus nerve, which is a nerve that connects from the brain to the gut. They never knew it was bilateral. They used to think it was just, the brain could signal the gut. They didn't know it went the other way. They know that now. They know there are more and more different species of bacteria coming up in the gut. Each one has it's like your own unique fingerprint. They do different things. So there's a lot more research going into those bacteria and what they do and how they affect you. So I think research is advanced enough for people to start realising, that gut health
How
really
important
matters.
it is, yeah. And how important is it, though, to our physical health? Because you just mentioned there that whole gut-brain connection, and that whole thing of your brain can affect your gut. Like, I think I became quite well aware of that when it was leading up to my wedding, and I think I gave myself IBS, and I was, when you're like, oh, I'm fine. So I've had periods of my life where I'm like, I'm totally fine, and I'm managing everything, yet you know, my gut is saying otherwise and my digestive system is all over the place. But you said it can work the other way around as well.
Yeah, it can signal both ways. You know, when you get butterflies in your stomach or you get that feeling, that's all your gut bacteria and everything doing what it has to do. Like the signals going on, it's your body's telling you, but you have a gut-brain connection, you have a gut-skin connection, you have a gut-vaginal connection, you have your immune system, you know, lives in your gut. So it's connected to everything.
Okay, and you know that expression as well, trusting your gut. Like you said, that from what you're saying, that is actually true then,
yeah,
right?
your gut feeling, yes.
Okay.
That gut bacteria talks to your brain and it signals lots, you know, there's still research being done, but it's quite prevalent in what it does.
What is a gut microbiome?
So the gut microbiome, it's trillions of bacteria, some viruses, some fungi that live in your gut, and you've got different colonies, different species. They should be in harmony, but when they get imbalanced, you can get like some bacteria that take over. That, you know, you get good bacteria. It's not bad bacteria, but it's imbalanced bacteria. So then it becomes bad, and then if that takes over, you start getting more and more symptoms, and things go wrong.
Okay, so in terms of that gut microbiome and good bacteria and bad bacteria, are these terms prebiotic and probiotic? Is that good bacteria?
Prebiotics are food that feed the good bacteria. Probiotics are your good bacteria. So prebiotics are found in things like green bananas and artichokes, apples. Those are prebiotic foods. When you eat those, they feed that bacteria in the gut, which are your probiotics. They then eat that, ingest it, and then their byproducts are called postbiotics, which then feed the colonocytes, the cells in your gut, in your colon. So you've got prebiotics that are the food, and you've got probiotics, which are your good bacteria. Postbiotics are their byproducts.
So those foods, the prebiotic foods, right? We should be eating more of those then.
Yes.
And are we eating enough, do you think, generally, people?
What we need to do is eat a variety.
Right. Fibre
is really, really important. You've got different types of fibre, like insoluble fibre, soluble fibre, and it's not just fruits and vegetables. You've got plant points, so they say you need to have 30 plant points a day now, or a week, I think it is. But you can, I mean, we're Asian, we can easily get 30. Anybody can easily get close to 30 in a day. For example...
Wait a minute, 30 different plants a day?
Plant points. So
right, okay.
Plant points include your herbs, they include your spices, they can include herbal teas, they can include fruits and vegetables. So if we are making a curry, for example, you would use cumin, you would use a little bit of maybe olive oil, you know, or avocado oil. I don't use the other oils, but you can put in some turmeric, you know, and all the other spices that you put in, and then you'd have vegetables in there. So you can see how you can easily make up
that makes sense
points in the day. Change your colours, make sure you're eating a rainbow, make sure you're eating different colours. Also, you can do different species. So, for example, if you're somebody that only eats pink lady apples, right, the following week, go and get some jazz apples. Then the following week, go and get some Granny Smiths. Change it around, because each one of those feeds different microbes in the gut. The gut likes diversity. So the more diversity you get, the better the gut microbiome is going to be fed.
So it's worth doing things like getting those multicoloured packs of peppers in the supermarket and having a bit of each one in your salad and stuff.
Absolutely. And herbal teas.
Yeah.
So if you're someone that likes herbal tea and you only drink chamomile, for example, next time go for peppermint. Next tea, go for tulsi. Next tea, go for something else, you know, just turmeric or something. Swap it around. Every time you swap it around, you're doing your gut a favour.
So this 5 a day thing, that is massively kind of like just, well, it's supposed to be more like, 10 a day, right?
They say 5 a day because the diet has got so ultra processed for for many people,
Yeah.
and so much more difficult for people to, people don't realise. So 5 is what they think the minimum people can get in. You can get in more. Absolutely do it. If you're packing your child's lunchbox, you can pack some red grapes and some green grapes and even a few black grapes, right? That's just 3 there.
Yeah.
Do a few different coloured peppers, do some hummus. Like, all of those are plum points.
Okay. I mean, I think this is great because, like, back in the 80s and 90s when I was growing up, they were like, none a day. The thing that they told you to eat a day was a Mars bar. A Mars a day helps you work, rest, and play.
Yeah.
What was that? And I mean, I was eating stuff like Finder's crispy pancakes. I don't know what the hell they were to this day.
Oh, well, even I grew up with those.
I know. And I'm so glad that we don't have those now because still to this day, don't know what the hell they were. But what does that kind of processed food do to us?
It can, well, you get lack of fibre, first of all. Fibre is so key. The gut really, really needs fibre. So that processed food, a lot of it's ultra processed. It's got sugar, it's got fats, so it's harming your heart, your arteries, things like that, because it's got so many different things in it. There's additives in there. There's some research, it's not. There's always like yes, no, but there's something called carrageenan, which is an additive or sometimes emulsifiers, which they say can damage the gut more. So sugar feeds more of that bad bacteria. You'll get more bloating and if you haven't got enough fibre, you're going to get constipated. If your liver and gallbladder's not working well and you're eating a lot of emulsified or fatty foods, you're going to have more diarrhea. So it can affect your digestive system as well as your brain, because you can get brain fog. Too much sugar can cause yeast overgrowth. So then you end up with thrush and candida, which can then lead to bad skin, acne, brain fog. So it's a vicious cycle.
It's crazy how all that can affect us so much. And we'll come to sugar in a minute because I'm trying to put off talking about sugar because I really like sugar. But things like all these, the processed food and kind of what it does to us is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But it's don't you think though, Nishta, that it's quite unfair in a way that all this stuff is quite easy. And I often think, especially for working mums, it's really easy to reach for processed things that you just chuck in the oven. And it just takes a little bit more time and effort and thought, and also money, let's face it, money to get all these different varieties of things. And I just feel like it's quite unfair in a way, isn't it?
It is, and it's not, everything processed isn't bad. So, we all use some processed food. It's the ultra processed fast foods that are worse. But for example, you might make a spaghetti bolognese for your children, so you're going to be reaching out for a passata. So that's processed, but it's still not, you wouldn't say that's bad. You can use a passata. It's just thinking about what you're doing. You can meal prep. It does take a little bit more time and effort to meal prep and freeze things and do things, but it's not as difficult as you think to cook fresh meals. I don't think it's about cutting out all processed food. It's being more savvy with reading labels. Is sugar number 1 on that ingredient list? Are there lots of ingredients on that packet that you can't pronounce? Then there's a lot of chemicals in there, and if you don't know what they mean, and there's a lot of them, then it's probably not the greatest choice. But to make some pasta, which is also processed, but it's fine, right? Or you can make better choices because you can get like lentil pastas and you can get pea pastas and things like that. They've got more fibre in them, so go for something like that. If you're making your bolognese sauce, make extra, freeze it.
I guess we're just going to have to accept that it is, if we want to look after our bodies, we're going to have that level of planning in life, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the big one now, sugar, and what that does to us, does to our gut.
It's, well, like I said, it can cause overgrowth of yeast and bacteria. It can also lead to brain fog when you've got a lot of candida and stuff. Sugar can affect your skin, and diabetes is the big one right now. Diabetes is now known, as when you've got too much sugar and stuff, it affects your insulin and how your body can process things. And then if you become diabetic, diabetes is now known as type 3. There's a type 3 diabetes, which is when you get Alzheimer's, so it's affecting the brain as well. So it's not just sugar though, it's all the white things, your simple carbohydrates, or your beige foods, so white bread and white pasta, and all the white ultra heavy kind of processed simple carbohydrates. So instead of going for, white potatoes are fine once in a while if you're eating them with fibre and lots of salad and stuff, but you can swap that for a sweet potato, like an orange potato, more beta carotenes, more fibre, it's better for you. Sugar's less, because those simple carbohydrates also turn into sugar.
So what are the foods that are absolute no-nos for the bacteria in our stomach? Are there foods that then increase the bad bacteria? Is that what happens?
Well, sugar is probably number one. You've got alcohol. Alcohol's another one that's not great. But again, everything in moderation, no one's going to be a Puritan. So you've got to try and do things where it is sustainable for people's lifestyles. You're right, it's all very well saying, don't eat this, don't eat that, do this, do this, do this, but how many people can actually follow it? So you've got to do things that are going to be more realistic and more doable for people. So just doing little swaps, little hacks, and trying to, if you don't eat any fibre, then yes, try and get 2 in a day, and then once you're used to 2, get in 3. Once you're used to 3, get in 4. Then start getting those plant points in a little bit more. Don't forget your herbs also count. So if you're using coriander or you're using dill or parsley, those all count. So I do a quinoa salad and I can get like close to 30 points in there just by adding dill, coriander, lemon. In the dressing I'll put some orange, I'll put some sesame seeds, I'll put some tahini in the dressing, a little bit of garlic, and then loads of veg, then different coloured quinoa. So even if you're using quinoa and you use that multi-pack with different colours, those are all feeding different gut microbes. So that's an easy meal to make, right? You can make a load of quinoa and freeze it and use it whenever you need to. For busy mums, that's a great way of doing things.
That sounds really nice, how you described it. Do you get a level of satisfaction of how many plant points you can get in a dish?
It's a bit of an obsession.
My crop.
It is a bit of an obsession.
Those foods that I kind of mentioned in the intro, so kefir and I think kombucha and kimchi, and we're getting a little bit of more awareness about these foods now, right? That they are good for us, are good for our gut. How are they good for our gut? Are they
They're probiotic in nature.
Okay. So what does that mean?
It means they're feeding that good gut bacteria. Now, with kombucha, it's more yeast-based, and probiotics are not necessarily good to take straight away for everybody. If you've got very imbalanced gut and you start high-dose probiotics, what can happen is a lot of that bad bacteria can die off. It's called a die-off, and then it gives you symptoms of feeling like you've got flu or joint aches and things like that as the bacteria dies off. So if you're not used to it, or there's a lot of work to be done with your gut, then you start very, very slowly. There's lactobacillus and bifidobacter. Those are the two that have a lot of research done on them. They are found in like live yogurts or sauerkraut. If you're using sauerkraut, kimchi, any of that, and you're not used to it, start with just a teaspoon of the juice,
right?
And then work up to a little bit more for a few days until your gut gets used to it. Then you can start with a teaspoon of kimchi or a teaspoon of sauerkraut or a teaspoon of kefir, and then go to a tablespoon, then go to a little bit more. Then your gut starts to, that bacteria gets used to, you build on it. So that's a good way of doing it.
Okay. As we get older, does our digestion slow down? Well, I mean, it does, doesn't it? And what is the impact of that gut microbiome as we age, and what can we do about it?
Keep doing what we've been talking about, feeding it with good fibre and different plant points, but it's also not even what you eat, it's when you eat and how you eat too. How many of us eat in a hurry? As we get older, our stomach acid naturally diminishes, so we get less stomach acid. Now, you need that stomach acid. Your stomach doesn't have teeth, so when you eat food, that stomach acid dissolves the food before it goes down and does whatever it has to in the small intestine and get the nutrients out. So when we eat too quickly, when we eat stressed, that stomach acid lowers more, and your stomach has to work harder to produce more stomach acid. And if you're not chewing your food properly and you're eating very quickly, there's much bigger pieces going into the stomach. If you haven't got enough stomach acid, it can cause more digestive issues. So it's also, how many of us actually sit there, smell your food, take time? Back in the day, years and years and years ago, families used to sit together.
Yeah.
They'd pray. They'd take a moment to appreciate their food. I think, I'm not saying nobody's going to do that now, because we're in just such a quick, fast-paced world, but we're also in that digital era. How many people are on their phones when they're eating? How many people are watching television? How many people eat alone?
Yeah.
All of those things matter, right? You can't help it if you've got to eat alone, but still set the table, set a place, sit at the table, chew your food, take time to chew your food. We should be chewing it 15, 20 times until it becomes liquid, every single bite before we put the next bite in, and that can help a lot with your stomach acid and sort of making sure that things are working right. But digestion actually starts here in the brain. Like if I said to you, close your eyes, and I gave you a lemon, I said, now suck on that lemon, your mouth's going to start to salivate. So your brain's telling your salivary glands to start to salivate. When we think about food, you're walking past that bakery, you smell that bread.
Yeah.
So your brain's going, oh yeah, I need that bread. So you go in, you eat it, you're chewing it, your brain's got to signal. Then it's got a signal to the throat to swallow. Then the stomach acid has to be produced. And digestion starts in the north and it goes all the way to the south, because then, your liver, gallbladder, digestive enzymes, pancreas, everything's involved. If things are not working up there, it's going to slow things down there. So you've got to be good and consistent with how you eat, when you eat, circadian rhythm. Don't eat too late before going to bed. You're not going to digest your food. So all of that matters too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of South Asians, I think a lot of people are better now, but they used to eat really late.
And heavy meals.
Yeah. I mean, I've been out in India for dinners with my family, and we were literally eating at 11:30. And it's like I wouldn't do that here, but they do eat quite late. I think I only kind of recently discovered that in medical school they don't actually teach you that much about nutrition and all this kind of thing. And somebody who's a doctor said to me that I think he had like one lecture on it.
Yeah.
And that was about it, which is so important, which is why it's so important that we do speak to people like yourself to find out a little bit more. Supplements are quite a big thing now, Nishta. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm taking this. What are you taking, right? In terms of our gut health, should we be taking probiotics?
If you can get them through food, I would always say food first.
So okay, and I keep getting confused about these, right? The prebiotics are what you spoke about before in terms of like the fruit and the veg that is going to, it feeds the gut bacteria, right? So the probiotics are different now.
So your probiotics are live bacteria that are found in your yogurt, your kefir, your kimchi, sauerkraut, foods like that. So
right.
Miso, tempeh, those are all got probiotics in them. So including a little bit of probiotic food in your diet. Like I said, if you're not used to it, start slowly, work yourself up, but make sure that you've got a good hit of those foods in your diet on a daily basis. So
with your meal in the evening, you could have some kimchi or some sauerkraut. In the morning, you can have a yogurt if you if you can take yogurt. If you can't, they do coconut yogurt that's got live bacteria in it too. Or you do some kefir. They also do coconut kefir for people who are lactose intolerant. You do a shot of that. So you're including some probiotic foods, you're including some prebiotic foods. You've got good protein, you've got lots of fibre in different forms through your fruits, veggies and your 30 plant-based point foods. And that way it's going to keep that bacteria happy and you're going to be getting enough. But if you've got a condition where you may need it, sometimes people need to top up and you can then top up. But if you can get it through your food, everything, I always say food first.
Okay.
Supplements are needed for people that can't absorb. There's a lot of people with digestive issues that can't absorb, like with Crohn's and colitis. Sometimes if the gut's very, very inflamed or there's a lot going on, then I would say there are certain ones you have to look for excipients to see which are ingredients that can irritate the gut more. So it's a minefield out there and there are so many. And if you've got really compromised gut health where you're not absorbing and you can't take much, then I would go for liquids and powders over tablets, because sometimes those will get passed out. If you're taking capsules or tablets, they get passed out a lot quicker.
Okay, that's really useful. If anyone wants some more information on gut health or nutrition, I know you share a lot of good stuff on your social media and you also have a website. So if you just want to share the details, if anybody wants to kind of find out more.
Okay, so my website is thegutexpert.com and my Instagram handle is thegutexpert_. And I've also just joined forces with a wellness chef where we're doing retreats and other things. So that one is the Wellness Mamas, MOMMAS, on Instagram, or thewellnessmamas.com.
Thank you so much, Nishta.
Thank
It's
you.
been really nice talking to you. And thanks for coming and dropping the gems on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.